Hello, and welcome to Mrs. T. Fox Resources on YouTube. Today, we have a life drawing demonstration. I'm going to be using charcoal sticks on newsprint. We're going to be drawing some fabric draped over a stool in my studio, and I will be working on newsprint. So without further ado, thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Well, guess who never hit record? So I'm going to do it again. Okay, it is very important when you're sitting to draw the still life that you not move around, that you are in position so that your head doesn't move, your body doesn't move. You don't want to draw like this for a while, and then like this for a while, and then like this for a while. You want to be sitting in the same spot so that all that moves is your eye and your hand. I'm using this charcoal on its side. And I'm starting with the big idea, big shapes. I'm going to lay out the knot is 3 shapes. There's a big shape, a long triangle, that's this cascading front. And then we have the folds that are coming down on the right side. So the size of the first shape is going to determine how much you fit on the paper. Drawing is about relationships. How big is this shape in relation to the shape next to it, in relation to the shape next to it? So I'm going to start up here. I see that little shape at the top of the knot. I'm on the side of my charcoal. I'm not using it like a pencil. I'm using it on the corners to create this second shape. It's much bigger than the first shape. And then I'm going to put this shape on the left of the knot. Everybody's still life will be different depending on where they're sitting in the classroom. I like to make sure that they're using these nice light 1/2 inch foam core drawing boards because they're easy to hold up. It's also important that the drawing board is vertical or almost vertical, not flat, and that they're looking straight and then they're looking down. So that's the other reason you want this to be up so that they can just look straight back and forth. And now I'm going to lay out my big idea. No details in the beginning. I can close one eye to flatten out this image in front of me to see I'm sighting where things need to start. So the edge of that little shape there is a little further over, more than halfway over here. So I know that I've got it in the right place. There's a little triangle here where the rest of the fold of the knot is. And then this shape comes out and down. Very light touch. I'm closing one eye. I'm sighting this angle. I'm still on the side of my charcoal on the corner. Moving it back and forth to create nice light edges. We want to look at the values. Value is lightness or darkness, and it's determined by light. So however the light is hitting this, places where the light is not getting in are going to be darker values. They're going to be shapes. Each value is a shape. So depending on how the light is hitting it, all of the shapes are going to be different configurations. You can work this charcoal to make it do whatever you need it to do. Life drawing is an important skill for these kids. if they're going to be going on to college, they're going to be drawing from life for the first year at least of their studio experience. So each one of these is a shape. And then the way we figure out how to assign value is by finding an area that's super dark and then judging all of the areas off of it. You want to make sure your fabric is nice and weighted. You don't want your lines coming out like this, or your fabric will look like it's stiff and it doesn't have any weight in it. This needs to come out further. So there's my big idea. And now I'm going to start doing what I call subdividing the values. So my darkest values are here and way deep into these crevices. And so as I look at the entire thing, nothing else, maybe a little bit over here, but nothing is super, super dark. I have changes, I have different values, I just don't have a lot of super, super dark ones. And so what tends to happen is people will really get in here and just go nuts with the charcoal, and then they end up with a big black blob. So it's really important to have them hold back and only put the darkest values where the darkest values are supposed to be. We taught a life drawing workshop a couple of weeks ago at our local Center for the Arts, and it was just wonderful. Wonderful. There's 3 middle school girls in there. If you're teaching middle school, I can assure you they can do this. Those girls killed it. It was a 3-hour class. They were into it the entire time because they got really excited once they realized they could do it. They were a little skeptical in the beginning, and they ended up just crushing it. Because once you figure out how to lay the contour line out, how to lay the big shapes out, and then you start adding your values, and you realize that, it's all about relationships, like how dark is this in relation to that. Once you learn how to identify the value and then apply it to the drawings, I was telling them at the workshop, there's no big secret here, okay? This is just observation and application of whatever drawing medium that you're using. The only thing that's moving is my eyes and my hands. Using this side of the charcoal, the flat side, to add some value. So you can start on the corner and then work your way up into the shape, and see how nice and crisp that is. This is a really cost-effective medium to use in your room too. Super cost-effective. I think a set of 12 charcoal sticks, oh gosh, I don't think it was anything crazy, $10 maybe. Super dark in here, super dark right here. And it's okay to come up onto the, to do some drawing. You just don't want them drawing like this. This is not a pencil, okay? This is why I like them to use the sticks, because they can really learn to manipulate the shapes, create the shapes, just using the side of the charcoal. I think it comes out a little bit further. It's really dark under here. Comes up here. Get very expressive, make some really cool marks. This is supposed to be fresh. It's not supposed to be really contrived. It's supposed to have energy, but you still have to have the right shapes, values, or it will not look like fabric. You're visually communicating with your viewer. You're telling a story, but you're not using words. This is what I was explaining to them at the life drawing workshop. So what are you telling them? Are you telling them they're looking at fabric? If you are, you've got to use all the right visual cues. Always easier to add So we don't do erasing, we just do a more conservative approach by adding the value, and then we don't need to erase. This is much darker in here. And then this is that really cool little fleecy, felty stuff. So I'm just going to kind of move my charcoal back and forth from the tip to the side. See if I can't come up with something that at the edge of the blanket. You can still see. Got the gray coming up here. This is really, this gets lighter. The value transition gets, it's really soft, but it gets really light right here on the edge. And then this is a nice, cool little shadow right here caused by that fold. I'm just using the side. What we used to do when the charcoal gets really, really round, from, you know, them using it on the corners until they can't use it on the corners anymore, then we would stick it in a box, and that's what they would use to make transfer paper. So we were transferring like the acrylic master studies onto the big canvases, because they draw them out on newsprint first. Then we have charcoal for transfer paper, because transfer paper is expensive, and quite honestly, it's thin and it tears. So we make it with drawing paper and the round charcoal pieces. So let's come up here and work in this little area. Pleats. Come up here. And it's okay to come up on the end of this. I'm not saying you can't draw on the end of it. You just don't want them to lean on that option, because everything will get really dark and harsh, and you want this to be like, you know, more soft, because it's fabric. Like I said, they can always add more value. It's the taking away. That is the hard part, because then you get a nice slimy mess when you start messing around in charcoal, trying to erase. When we come up to the crisp edges, we can just move away from those with the side of the charcoal, put it at a little bit of a slant, and just drag it down and stay right on the edge. When you're working where the fabric rolls under, you can even move the charcoal kind of in a rounded, that directional line. Put the soft transition in here where this is just kind of bending in just a little bit. Up. And wherever it's light, I'm just really kind of trying to stay out of there. You try to get in there and like add white back in, you get kind of a milky, nasty gray. And then it can tend to look a little overworked. And you know, you want this, like I said, to be fresh, have a little more personality. This gets a little bit darker. I'm just following the shapes and following the values. And as long as they're developing it slowly, and they're not getting carried away with, you know, too much too soon. It's a very engaging lesson because they really have to lock in. There goes the train. Got lots of trains here in Greenville. Got these little value shapes. They're like little triangles. There's lots of little triangles in a fabric drawing. So we got this edge, but then we got a couple long triangles that come out here. That light is lost right there. That's coming. I'm just on the side of the charcoal, coming straight down, dragging it diagonally down to the left. Value rolls up. And then here, a little bit of a soft. The more I look, the more I see. That's a real deep thought, huh? But where it comes down here and it meets this next shape, that's where you want your crisp edges. Because that's how you tell me that there's a knot in the fabric, and that's how you tell me that fabric is rolling under and emanating out from. I would have maybe like a pack of wipes for them to clean their hands on because it is messy. It is definitely a messy medium. And if they have something there at the table that they don't have to get up and wash their hands, it will make the engagement a lot more consistent because there won't be a lot of movement. As soon as somebody gets up and starts moving around, it's a distraction. And they're really into this, but when people start to move, they can't help but get distracted. And the minute you're distracted, you're not looking anymore, or that's when you put the value in the wrong place. All right, and there you have it. So remember, you have your edges of your values, lightness and darkness. You have this nice little stick of charcoal that can do anything you want it to do on the corner of the charcoal, on the side of the charcoal, and make sure your edges of your values are crisp in the transition where they need to be crisp, like here where this fabric is rolling in front of this other one. And you want to make sure that your value transitions are soft, like right here, where, and you can use your fingers too. Don't really go in too much to using your fingers. You just don't want to rub around in there too much because then you end up with a big giant smudgy mess. But there's certainly nothing wrong with doing some blending with your pinky to move some of those values together. Remember, list of supplies can be found in the video description. Simply go right below the video where you see the basic description, where you see the video description. You're going to see a little thing that says see more. Click on that see more. That'll drop down the entire video description. And then you will see the supply link there.
And please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please also don't forget to join my email list at mrstfoxresources.com because there's more content on the way.